My name's Hop, and I am not perfect. The proof is right here in this journal. My previous video, I covered 5 questions that you should ask yourself before making a custom spread. After recording that video, I remembered I actually have a spread, completely sketched out, looks ready to use, but reflecting on it, I don't think it should ever see the light of day. Today, I fixed that. Thank goodness for pencils. Oh, before we jump right in, if you'd like to chat with me about journaling, content creation, or anything for that matter, you can find me live on Twitch on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Link in the description below. If you can't catch me while I'm live, feel free to also follow up with me on any of my social media. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I was inspired by one of Ashley Christ's now not so recent videos about the ability to grow internally as a person and how that can help you create better content. I had a bit of a, I guess you could say, journey, deep dive into the whole concept of self-growth and self-improvement. After watching that video in particular, it was nice hearing a stream coach talk about something outside of the usual rise and grind ideals that I tend to see are repeated a lot on social media. Rather than having a whole spread that kind of covers the ideals of why I should be honest with myself when it comes to content creation in my bullet journal, I'm just applying that directly into my daily logs and my weekly spread. If you watch my month in review video, you probably noticed that I mentioned that I really like the weekly spread that I have going on right now, where essentially I have the date. Next to that, I put the content that I have planned for that day, and then I leave space underneath. The space underneath is meant for me to kind of reflect on the content that I created that day. Apologies for the poor handwriting. When I jot down how I'm feeling about the day, I just word vomit it. Here in this example regarding my previous bullet journaling video that I recorded, I didn't give myself the complete green, okay, happy, yes, let's go, everything's perfect. What I did was give myself like a yellow green, which means I liked it, but I didn't love it. If you look underneath, basically what I write here is that I was nervous because it was my first video where I spent a majority of it talking directly to the camera. You'd think, since I've been streaming for a few years at this point, originally on Mixer, now on Twitch, I'd be used to the idea of talking directly to a camera right now. Man, does it feel different when there's no chat on the other side. But like they say, in order for you to grow, you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. I've been able to watch my monstera and my anthurium grow over the past year. It's my turn for some growth. Also, I am extremely surprised I kept these plants alive for a year. So I went back, I looked at the spread itself, and I kind of asked myself my 5 questions before I even decided to fill in this spread with anything beyond pencil. What I realized the biggest thing was I didn't make it for myself. What I initially made this spread for was for YouTube, to kind of give me an out for not having to talk directly to the camera about the points I wanted to make. And while it could look pretty, I could have some fun handwriting and fun things for it, it doesn't actually help me as a person. BRB, gonna go and try and erase my nerves like I'm trying to erase this spread. What I had planned for this spread was to actually be a means for talking points for me to cover the idea of honesty as a whole when it comes to content creation in your bullet journal. It's not easy. It can suck a lot of the time, but if you stick around to the end of the video, I do have a couple of resources that I used. I either read or listened to in audio format that helped me kind of jump that hurdle and learn how to be honest with myself in a productive manner. I know in previous videos, I keep kind of reiterating the point that the bullet journal for me is more than just a planning tool, which is what I really appreciate about it. Not only is it really flexible to be whatever I want it to be, but I can also have a space for me to actually journal while planning things. The creator of the bullet journal method, Ryder Carroll, also has a couple of videos up on YouTube. One of them I really enjoyed is the concept of putting journaling in your bullet journal. In being honest with yourself, you're essentially creating a journal within it. So what he covers is essentially what I've applied to my weekly spreads. The major thing you just want to make note of is you create a special notifier for yourself to say, hey, this isn't something to do for this day, this is just my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas, my ramblings. For me, I use a plus sign as my notifier. I believe that's the same thing that Ryder uses in his video, and it's just something that stands out to me. So in all, why does honesty with yourself actually matter when it comes to creating content? You can easily do a Google search and find yourself tons of strategies and tips and tricks and how-tos on making content online. And while there's nothing wrong with looking this stuff up, it can help you understand algorithms, the platforms, how to connect with people better. All of those are good. But another thing to consider is how your content is growing with you. I think we can all agree here that consistently taking small steps and taking the world of content creation as a marathon and not a sprint to the finish, we can all reach goals that we put in front of ourselves. The main difference I've felt when it comes to like my full-time job versus creating content online is that when it comes to creating content online, there is no boss. There is no supervisor that comes back and tells you, hey, you have a deadline. We need to get things done so you get paid and you keep the job. Where with content creation, the only person holding you accountable is yourself. So to be able to run the whole marathon that is to reach your goals when it comes to making online content, you gotta make stuff that makes you happy or proud or just confident in general. When it comes to my journey on Mixer, I eventually hit a point where I made some great friends, I was doing well, I was technically meeting the numbers that it would take to reach partner, and I was getting there. But I hit a wall where the one game that I was playing started to make me miserable. It got harder and harder to want to go back online. I started to have all these like questioning thoughts, like if I play another game, people will never want to watch me because they only watch me because I play this particular game. And I kept going back and forth. Do I quit the game and accept that I'm going to lose viewers, blah, blah, blah. But I think I took too long fighting with myself on that fact that I just showed in my content that I wasn't happy making that type of content anymore. In hindsight, I think I lost more of my viewer base because I lost the energy and excitement that I had during streaming, rather than if I consider just slowly adding other games into my wheelhouse to kind of transition to be from a single game person or more of a variety person that gets to play something that they're enjoying at that time. At the end of the day, I should have asked myself like, hey, are the numbers fine, but I'm having a good time? Hell yeah, keep at it, keep going, it's worth it, it's fun, and you won't want to give up. Are the numbers great, but I didn't vibe with what I was making? Oh no, burnout incoming. I joked about that rise and grind mentality, but following through with that, especially on content that you may not necessarily be passionate about or completely enjoy, you're definitely going to hit some level of burnout. As long as you're making stuff that you feel confident about, you enjoy, and you would watch yourself, then that's definitely good content that you made. Whether or not the numbers reflect some standard that someone out there has said means that it's good content. And while it's kind of discouraging to hear people that you may be close to not really believe in online content because you don't have any kind of numbers to back up to say you're successful by whatever standard that is, it doesn't bring joy to have to rely on external factors like metrics. So then that leads into the question, what kind of things should you actually be tracking when you're being honest with yourself? It's not always easy to figure out what the best way to be honest with yourself is. I think it's all dependent on you as a person. It took me a while to figure it out, honestly. Early on, I just tried to focus on what I'm feeling at that moment and what recently occurred. I wouldn't be surprised if I went back into previous journals and wrote something like, I feel like bashing my head against a wall, and that I wrote right above that. I was trying to rank up in Overwatch and everything just kept going wrong. In that example, I was able to branch off and realize that I have a lot of negative self-talk when it comes to doing poorly in any kind of like ranked system, rather than really recognizing that, you know, sometimes things are a team effort, and sometimes if a team doesn't work, then things don't work out. Once I was able to narrow this down, I sought some resources and tools for myself to learn how to self-analyze rather than just look at myself in the mirror and say, you is trash. Right now, these are my top 3 books that I personally loved. First one I would recommend is Embrace Your Weird by Felicia Day. She's got a ton of great exercises in here, as well as her sharing her personal experiences with battling a lot of self-doubt when it came to content creation, especially since she turned it into a career. For a while, I had an Audible subscription, so I had originally grabbed this as an audiobook for me to listen in the car, but I quickly realized with all the exercises and things she throws at you, they're really productive exercises, but you can't really do them while driving a car. But bam, here I got the real deal. But yeah, if I flip through the book, there's some like in-book exercises. Reading one of them, I see that I wrote down that I admired Balto as a kid, which is one of my favorite movies growing up. And then I also have some things on separate pieces of paper if I felt like they didn't fit in the book or it's something I wanted to save for myself later on. The exercises she provided are kind of like a way for her to hold your hand to work through different anxieties, because really one of the biggest enemies of content creation is our self-doubt that makes us go, you know what, it's not good enough, I'm not gonna actually make it, I'm never gonna start. Well, she starts with telling you to draw the ugliest horse you could imagine, because sometimes it's just fun to make things, whether they're good or bad, or whether you plan on sharing them with the world or you don't. I never planned on sharing this horse, but here he is. The second one I would recommend is The Power of Vulnerability by Brene Brown. This one is perfect to listen to as an audiobook. It's essentially a full-on TED Talk where she goes through her shame research and what it means when it comes to how we treat ourselves as people. I started recently re-listening to this kind of in the background as I work, kind of in the same way I would listen to a podcast, and one of the big takeaways I got from my current re-listen, the idea that we're all kind of obsessed with the idea that we're never going to be enough, and that we feel like we're not worthy unless we do something really extraordinary. And I feel like this applies well to the content creation world, where, you know, you expect to come home with big numbers or big paychecks. But sometimes it's okay to just be enough, just to be happy with what you're making. The third one I'd recommend is Take Control of Your Life by Mel Robbins. I believe this one is an exclusive audiobook specifically for Audible, but I found this book a great listen anyway. It's essentially her walking through discussions with various people to help them work through mental blocks that are preventing them from doing things they want in life. So while maybe story 1 doesn't resonate with you, maybe story 4, or maybe you can find a tidbit of knowledge from each story that helps you in the long run. Not only that, but with getting the audiobook, she does provide you with a PDF where she has exercises much like Felicia Day's book, where you can work through and figure out how these different concepts may apply to you and how you can work through them. Yeah, those are just some top 3 ones that I recalled while I was making this video. Some others I did also enjoy are Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert and Essentialism by Greg McKeown. If you have any other books or resources or tools that you really like to use, please leave a comment below and I'll be sure to check them out. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I hope it helped in some way. If you enjoy this content, please make sure to like and subscribe so I know to keep making more. I've got plenty of videos planned out right now on how I use bullet journaling to deal with the fun and not so fun parts of content creation. Hope that you stick around and get to watch those as well.